Uh, I'll call the regular board meeting of directors meeting for the sanitary district to order. It's 5:30. This is being recorded, and I will start out and introduce Leanne McNutt, who's down at the end of the table as our newest employee in the front office and admin. So welcome.
Thank you very much.
And we have two other board members. I met you the other day, Simeon.
Aye.
And Jim are here, and Jerry is on the internet. And then we're missing one other, Jeff, the fire chief.
No,
Or-
He's on.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, great. So the first item is approval of the agenda. Does anybody have anything they want to add or change on the agenda? All right. Well, a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll move to approve the agenda.
Second that.
Any other discussion? If there's no other discussion, all in favor of accepting the agenda as written, say aye.
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 Guests, we have none. Public comments, none. Board questions, comments, or discussion. Is there anything up front that anybody would like to discuss? If there is none, the next item is review of the minutes of September 19th, 2024. A motion to accept the minutes.
I wasn't there, so I should not
Okay.
move to accept.
I can move that we accept the
I'll second
minutes.
discussion of the minutes.
It was interesting to read them. I appreciate them. I did notice that there were 4 occasions on which there is a person singular pronoun I that should be mellow.
Okay,
And I can tell you where they are.
okay, perfect.
On the second page under collection systems, the Oceanside Hotel has sent NOSC some flow estimates, and Mello has sent them. At the top of page 3, second line, Mello contacted Walker. So far, Mello has only received 1 estimate. There's 2 there, one in the second line, one in the third. At the bottom of the page, the very last letter should say Mello, and it should say has at the top of the next page. Sorry for being an English teacher.
So on the same page 3, under treatment plan, line 3,
Oh, there's one more. I missed that.
I have contacted an electrician. Okay.
Okay.
Anybody have anything else they would like to add? Change. If not, all those in favor of accepting the minutes of September 19th with those revisions, say aye.
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 Right.
So. You and Joe.
Yeah.
320.
Did we get everybody? Okay.
I have 3.
All right, the financial statements for September 30th for review of all funds. A motion to accept the financial statements.
I'll move to accept the financial statements.
I'll second that.
Discussion. I probably have this confused, but page 5, under disbursements, the upgrades, replacement projects, and are spent to date. The 210,929. I'm sorry, you probably explained this before, but I just saw it as spent to date. What was that to cover?
That was the manual transfer switch, the new generator. It was the.
Okay,
MTS
so all
switch.
that's in the new fiscal year. I mean,
That's correct. That's
Yeah.
when we were invoiced for it.
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And the red numbers on page 6.
Our other funds carried out until we receive the tax money
That's what I thought they were.
for the payments for the debt fund.
And we should get those next month?
November.
We should, yes. Yes. absolutely.
So, how are we doing with that? You know, we getting most of them, or?
Well, this is, debt service. It always like this. We'll get some payments the first of the fiscal year in
Yeah.
July,
Yeah,
and then usually the rest of them about November of every year. at the end of July. That's why we have to keep money in that fund,
right.
is to cover.
So really what we're talking about is the actual property taxes start coming due.
Yeah.
In November. Is that when you can get a discount or whatever? I mean, a property owner can get that, what, 5 to 10% discount if they pay it immediately.
I have no idea. That has nothing to do with us.
Yes.
Well, I know that doesn't have anything to do with you, but it to encourages people to pay
Oh, yeah, yeah.
in a timely manner.
I pay mine in full. I like the discount.
Excuse me?
I pay mine in full. I like the discount.
Yeah. In favor of accepting the financial statements, say aye.
All right,
Aye. Board audit and bank reconciliation. Excuse me?
I need more facts. Simeon, did you vote on that?
I did.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Are we getting,
No, that's okay. I didn't
are we
hear.
getting it online?
I am not. So that's why I just wanted to make sure that I had the 3 here.
Oh, I said yes.
Can we,
Jeff,
is Jeff,
Jeff's got his mic muted. Chief, are you there?
There's a microphone at the bottom of your screen, Jeff. It'll be crossed out. Just touch it.
Sorry, I was muted. Go ahead, guys.
Okay.
so Jeff, for anything we've already voted on, you concurred?
Yes, I tried to get in on the eyes, sorry.
Okay.
Okay, so
We're good.
we're
Yeah.
good. And I might remind everybody again, and I'm sorry, Aaron and Dan asked that we identify ourselves to make it easier when they go back through the video to reconstruct the minutes. Right, isn't that, would be helpful. All right. Next item is the board audit accounts payable.
The emergency sewer line repair. What was that?
I might add that everything is performing properly on the edge of my property.
Oh, good.
Yes, it was the sewer line
Okay.
that runs between my property and the property next door. But yeah, it was, I don't know if you want to explain that for Simeon, since he wasn't here last month.
This is Dan, so, you're talking on the second page,
Yeah,
check 19-146.
yeah.
Yeah, so we had to, there was root intrusion, inside that line, and plugged it up.
I think I remember you mentioning that to
Yeah,
me.
so we had to bring,
Yeah.
it was walled in, E-root cut it out, and we brought an underground tech to put a liner in it.
Yeah.
To seal it back up.
Yeah. Okay.
If there's no more questions, we're ready for the district report.
Okay, so the treatment plant is doing really well. Under the collections, I still have not heard anything from either one of the hotels. I spoke with our engineer today. He has not been contacted with any new flow numbers or any estimates. He's still waiting for that. So,
I believe the proposal for the motel has lapsed. So I
for
don't,
which one?
for the one at the bottom of the hill.
Yeah,
So I don't
The
know,
cabins,
the
for the
cabin.
cabins.
So I don't know if we're ever gonna see anything there, at least not until somebody revives that project.
And we've gotten no more information from the house on the hill.
So to be clear, though, the permit to build something lapsed.
Yeah, they're right,
They still own the buildings.
correct.
Yeah.
So one would expect them to come forth with a new proposal at
Whenever.
some point, but our desire to wait until we had both in order to upgrade the Oceanside pump station, or to know how much we might need to. I don't know if we're gonna have that option. I think we may have to do something because of the house on the hill before we know what might happen with the cabins.
Well,
The
we do
house
have, oh, go ahead.
This is
Go ahead,
Jerry.
Jerry.
Yeah, the House on Hill application, they actually had it rejected as incomplete, but they have a certain amount of time to come back and fix it. That same thing happened at the cabins and they never came back in time. We don't know yet whether the House on the Hill is going to come back with something to re-up the consideration of their permit. And their time, I think, ends in, I think, late January or early February.
That's what I recall.
So this is Dan, for clarity, we don't actually do anything. We wait to be contacted with their proposals on what they want to do. So there's nothing that we can do to move forward on preparing for that. Because we actually have no data. Well, we don't have much data. We have a little bit from House on the Hill, but there's no project as far as the district's concerned.
Okay.
and this is John, but isn't it sort of a dilemma in that if the house on the hill moves forward and is ready to roll, and we don't have anything from the cabins, then the dilemma is we don't know what capacity increases we might be faced with, or what changes we might need to make to the Oceanside pump station. Is that correct, or?
Well, this is Dan, that's pretty much correct. We can only take whatever's given to us. So if House on the Hill theoretically goes through all their steps and they get their, project done, and we upgrade the pump station to take that in, if it's required, then when the second, how the cabins decide a year or two later, then that's a reconsideration, and then we have to look at upgrade again if necessary.
So it's possible, this is assuming that we would have to upgrade things twice, theoretically.
Theoretically, yes, it's possible. I kind of doubt it, but yes, theoretically. We've never had two projects come at us like
Right.
this and then just both stopped.
Yeah.
After even partially starting, so.
Yeah.
So second paragraph, I still have it on my district report about the brush in the easement there. North Coast is backing out. They really don't want the risk of that hillside. And so he hasn't officially done it, but that's what he's thinking after talking to his insurance provider of the risk to something like that. So I don't know what the board wants to do on this situation. I mean, do I take it off and we not move forward with it? Do I leave it on here? And
There was some, this is Jim, there was some information that the chief shared with us that you probably are not aware of. Dan, do you want to remember that?
so I'm gonna give a shot at this, chief.
Well, we
but,
got the
yeah,
chief
Oh,
is on
that's right.
with us.
He's on the magic screen.
well, this is Dan. I'll go ahead and report on what I know is that the chief reported on more fuel, more brush to burn at the bottom of these people's decks at their house. I don't know where our property line is, but I believe that some of those are outside of the PUD easement. And, you would then be widening the scope beyond that to clear brush for everybody.
So I think that, pardon,
Go ahead.
Jim, I think what was discussed is that the fire risk to the homes was more important that they take care of their own perimeter, the higher risk than what we've got going. And then there's the erosion issue, taking away, the large chunks, which is an geoengineering issue.
Dan?
This is Jeff.
Yes.
Yeah,
I agree.
let Jeff update himself.
I agree with both of those things. The fuel load underneath the houses is definitely the primary concern, but I think my assessment was when I got there that PUD should be held responsible for cleaning up that mess because they made 90% of that mess, including the erosion that's taking place because of the pole they set. So I really think we should throw it back to PUD and see what their response is, but I will leave that to the attorneys in the room.
This is Jerry, and I was going to do that, but I was, I think waiting to confirm that you were going to be requesting, I think, the state fire marshal to do a survey. And once we knew that was going to happen, I was going to contact the PUD to alert them that it was going to be happening, and kind of set the markers for determinations of further action and liability to be based on the risks that were identified. So that's where I thought things stood after the last meeting.
Okay, I'll reach back out to Shannon, Jerry. It's the wildfire season has finally come to an end and they're all kind of coming back to Salem. So I will get in touch with them and keep you posted.
And once that happens, I'm more than happy to, engage the PUD in a non-confrontational, just, informal way to alert them of the whole situation and what we're thinking, just to kind of set the stage so that we're not engaged in dueling formal emails down the road, unless it's necessary.
So
This is Jeff.
this-
So Dan, if
Oh.
I don't know if you want to leave it on and just we'll table it for until next month and I'll get an update from Shannon Miller, who's our regional fire marshal.
This is Dan. That sounds good to me. I'll just go ahead and write it on here, just table it, but I'll leave it on here for next month, okay?
This is John, so it's tabled.
In the third paragraph, under pump stations, we had a pump failure at Capes 1 pump station. We pulled the pump. It had a leak detection. It's already been sent in for repair. The spare pump, the rebuilt one, we went to stick it back in and Xylem shorted the cord. So we can't plug it in to run it and close up the cable tray and keep it safe from any human contact. It is still in there. We can, if we lose another pump, we can go down and plug it in and run it. So we're leaving that in there for now. I just, in case somebody from the Capes calls you, we may have to go down there and plug it in and run it and then leave it, or we may have to plug it in, put some sort of barriers around it, because it'll be outside all of its safety channels that cable is supposed to lay in. It's too short to plug in otherwise. But it does give us a backup in case something happens with the current pump that we're in there now. Why the other one's over being rebuilt. I just want the board aware of that we may have to do something.
And there's no way to replace the cable with a longer cable?
There is. You pull the pump, take it to Xylem, and they have to put
It can't be done on site.
no.
Okay,
They have to disassemble the top of the pump motor in order to get to it.
got it.
So it's nothing that we can even do. And it's too high voltage and amperage to try to put a splice in it and put just lengthen it,
Mhm.
put an extension on it. You can't do those with these. The risk is too high.
Yeah, no, I was imagining a cord that you take off one end, you get a longer cord, yeah.
No, it's actually sealed to keep water out because all these pumps are submersible.
Yeah,
So when the cords go in, they're actually sealed.
Yeah.
So you have to take the top of the motor apart. They could do it while we're there. It doesn't take long, but there's nothing we can do about it.
okay.
And when is this gonna be taking place? Jim?
This Dan, I have no idea when it's gonna be taking place. Right now, we're getting the other pump evaluated. Brian's been in contact with the maintenance guy at Xylem, Saxon. So we're waiting to hear back and we can have that new cord. I don't think that they have the cord in stock. It's gonna take like 50 feet of cord. So they don't have that in stock right now. It's my understanding.
And this is Simeon, do you have any thoughts about what happened to the pump that failed?
It's called a leak detection, so a seal. Either water could have whipped down in through the cable. 'Cause, they're constantly in water.
Yeah.
Or a seal in the motor allowed water through up into the
Mhm.
control head from the bottom. So the only indicator we get that we read is leak detection, which we know it's electrical. We lost a seal somewhere in the pump.
And so basically that pump needs to be rebuilt.
Yes, this would be a minor, I'm gonna call a minor rebuild. So we didn't lose any bearings, we didn't blow anything up. So it should be basically new seals and probably bearings and things like that. It's still $7,000 or $8,000, but it's not a $20,000 replacement.
So this is John. The other pump is working just fine.
Correct.
If it were to fail, what would we do, or could we do anything?
We can go down there and plug the other pump in. There's two pumps in there. One is connected,
Right.
running automatically. The other one is in there. The cable is hung inside on a hook. So if the primary pump fails, we can go down there and we can hook the one in with the short cable. We just can't secure it for safety.
Okay.
So we'll have to figure out whether we're gonna have guys stay down there and run it, or if we're gonna figure out some way to
Big warning signs.
well, we'll have to close it off. We'll have to secure the area around that wet well.
Yeah.
So this is John again. could be made to run if it became critical.
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. There's no danger of a pump station failure where we can't run.
This is Simeon. If the other pump would fail, you would get an automated notice of some sort.
Yes.
What's the timeline getting down there to plug it in? What's that look like?
20 to 30 minutes if they're out, if they're at home, if an operator's at home.
Okay,
So we usually, especially under these flow conditions and the capes, we usually have 3 or 4 hours
Okay.
before we get critical. And we're notified as they're driving out, they get notifications if it goes in to a high wet well mode or things like that. So we'll be monitoring it until we can get there and plug in the other part.
and is there sewer system intrusion if it's like raining cats and dogs? Is
Not so much at the capes, basically that's all sand.
okay,
So you're not gonna get up on that hillside, you're not gonna get the water table to rise. That would basically encase
yeah,
and find leaks in your pipes. And this is the time of the year where there's not a lot of, people there. So, our response time is a little bit longer.
okay. Simeon, I was just kind of running the scenario in my head, trying to make sure that we weren't gonna have an issue if the pump failed before we could get there and fix it. Or plug it in.
There's always that risk, but right now, I'll tell you, it's extremely a low percentage.
Okay.
This is John again. Could you maybe explain that we're not expecting any problems, but in regard to the ship date of November 13th for the new Cummins generator, you had mentioned that a number of years ago, when there was a hurricane, all of the equipment that, or even items that we had, were basically sucked into the repair of the facilities that were affected by the hurricane. So
When we were building this treatment plant and they had the one in Louisiana, the big hurricane storm,
Katrina probably.
Katrina, I believe it was, yes. FEMA redirected all of our HDPE pipe that brings the sewer from the main pump station up to here. This is during construction. They confiscated they took all the generators that we had on order. And they took all the pumps. So everything that we had wound up being put off for another 2 months. So it's a possibility to do what's happened down south. I have sent an email to Cummins. They have not responded with you're still on time or, there's been a change of delivery schedule.
There has been?
Huh?
There has been?
There has not been.
Oh, okay.
But they have not responded to my latest one since the second hurricane. After each hurricane, I usually contact Cummins or something to find out where we're at with something like that. So our current generator is still operational.
And we have the mobile generator. We need it.
Yes, we have the mobile generator and it would work at Happy Camp. It will not work at either of the Capes.
Oh, that's right.
So, on the second page, the Netarts pump station doors require replacing. They're coming apart and the door jambs that hold them have pulled out of the block and the concrete. So these are expensive, large doors that go in there. The attached, $12,150 cost was not a complete quote from Bell Hardware. And you've been handed 2 quotes from earlier. So Bell did, when Sean got a hold of him, then I went back to get the warranty information from him today. You'll see the quote has gone up a couple $1,000 from what they first gave. this quote that is attached, if you read under description, they were hollow metal door replacements. But they, above that, in the product description, they quoted for fiberglass doors. I needed that corrected. Because if we agreed to this, and then we discovered there was no door frame included with this, and the door frame down there is what's failing. So the second Bell Hardware quote you have, that's dated October 17th today, that is the current one.
So this is John. My understanding, I talked to a local contractor about my own front door and also the hardware store. They seem to all think in our environment that the fiberglass doors are the way to go.
It is the only, yes. Yeah. We've had steel doors, they rust holes through them. Yeah, they don't last.
Yeah.
And the cost difference isn't much.
Yeah. No,
So,
I replaced a steel door with a fiberglass door at
Yeah.
my house for that very
these
reason.
are large industrial because we have to have room to pull generators in and out. So these are, sticker shock. I mean, we first tried to look at just having them repaired and they're beyond repair. So they would have patched them up for $2,500 with no warranty, no guarantee. Nothing. Now, you have two quotes in front of you, the other one's from Vortec. And you'll see that Vortec is quite a bit more, but Vortec is supplying all new hardware, hinges, door handles, everything. Bell Hardware is gonna reuse the old ones down there.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And the old ones are old style from 2005. They don't have the ball bearings in them to carry the load weight of those doors.
Now, are they also those parts partially corroded? This is John again.
They're stainless steel, but yes, they're partially rusted, and the door handles kind of on the outside is wore out. It kind of flops, and that's because the guys have to pull on it so hard now to get the doors to open. So they're not including hardware. They don't normally. The other quote from Vortex, you get everything brand new, including the upgraded hinges. You get a 1-year warranty from Bell Hardware for their installation. You get a 5-year warranty from Vortec. You get, I think their manufacturer warranties are pretty close to the same, 25 years. But what I don't like about Bell's is they're gonna reuse a lot of the old hardware that's already worn. Those pins on the hinges, I believe, are not in very good shape. The guys are having to knock them back down in there. So this is like, I'd say third or fourth attempt to get Bell Hardware to give us an appropriate quote. So where they said if the existing frame under Bell Hardware needs to be saw cut from the concrete, it will have to be saw cut from the concrete. So that $2,400 will be applied.
So the difference between these two quotes ends up being around $3,000.
Yeah. With used hardware with one, new hardware with the other. So there's nothing cheap about any of these doors. I would recommend the Vortec. I like the 5-year warranty by Vortec versus the 1 year by Bell. And all us operators that were here when this place was built know that we need that warranty.
Yeah.
Because there are problems. Sometimes the fiberglass doors will swell. And we want the installer to come back and repair that.
So we're ready for a motion?
Yeah, but I have one question. This is John. It is not our problem, and I realize that, but does anybody know the condition of the doors for the bathroom, which is right next door? I mean, I imagine that's the county, right? Or is
That's
that?
county. Well, it's the
Marine Board.
It's the Marine Board, yeah. It's county parks.
It's county parks.
Yeah, it belongs to the county parks.
Right.
Well, yes and no.
Okay, That's who we signed the contract.
This is
with
Jim.
when we built it, yeah.
The Marine Board has jurisdiction over part of it, which I'm not exactly clear on which, whether that includes the bathrooms or not.
Why
It
did
does
John
not.
ask?
Well, I can tell you it does not. I have to call the county parks if I need to report an issue, if something's broken or something like that. When we notice it, I have to call county parks.
With their doors, this is John again. The doors to the bathroom are not unique like this door at all, or are they in a way similar?
They're not gonna like, the weights of them are completely different, the sizes of them are different, they're not as tall.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just didn't know if they wanted to jump in and their door gets replaced and our doors get replaced.
This is Jim. These doors we're looking at are like industrial size.
Right, right. Yeah.
So I don't,
Okay,
there's no matchup.
no matchup. Okay,
No,
All right.
you're right, this is Dan, would be a completely different type of door that they would do.
Okay.
And there's really nothing wrong with theirs.
okay.
Theirs aren't heavy enough to pull the hinges out of the concrete and stuff.
Does anybody have any other questions or discussion? If not, well, we didn't really have a motion, but can I have a motion
Jim was gonna make a motion.
to?
I make a motion that we go ahead and go with the Vortex proposal for the Netarts-Oceanside, for the Netarts boat landing doors, the pump station there.
I'll second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right,
Aye.
Out of the treatment plant, there's still some electrical issues. I think I reported on this last month. And all the light poles, the electrical plugins are corroded. And so they're no longer working. We did get the electrical up and working for the air relief valves for the basins. So that's been repaired, but, they're gonna have to come back, the electrician's gonna have to come back and order he's already ordering the correct plugins to replace all those. I don't know if they're all bad, but when he inspected them all, when he was here, he just recommended just replacing them all. They all show about the same type of corrosion and rust on the inside.
This is Simeon. I presume these are weatherproof in some way, or?
Well, they have sealed covers over them.
Right.
They're rated for outside, all the
Yeah.
covers. Your plugins are still standard.
Yeah.
Almost standard, but
Yeah.
they're standard industrial,
Yeah,
but they've been there for 14 years out in the weather.
in this salt air,
Yeah.
things corrode.
Yeah. When I talked to the electrician, he says the plugins they put in were rated for 5 years, so
Yeah.
he thought we did pretty well getting what we got out of them.
Okay.
So I'll have a cost for that hopefully by next board meeting. Capital improvements, we met this is for the Avalon project area. We met with one of the pump suppliers, a different type of pump system. I've already rejected that. It's a type of system that every property would have its own mini pump station, like an injector unit that the district would have to be responsible for. And we would have to have access to run these. The guys would have to take a generator down if there's a storm and power is knocked out, and they would have to pump all 35 of those and keep pumping them and keep pumping them. So the labor cost would just be ridiculous. Instead of having one generator, one pump station.
Yeah.
So I contacted our engineer back and said it's not gonna work for us. It's probably fine if you want to look at something like Radar Road or something out that's more flat. Areas like that, but it's certainly not gonna work for that area down in there. But we still have to look through these. It's something to EQ. it's also pushing, districts and cities to look at. And there are areas that would work great. It's just not, because it's a public system. So we would be responsible for it, other than like Pearl Street, those are private ejectors, so we're not responsible for maintenance, pumps, or anything. The other way, now you've got 70 pumps to maintain, you want to have 2. So we're still in that, figuring out the types of equipment that we need, that the engineers will have to spec for that pump station.
So this is John. Was that a vendor came in, or was that West Tech said, this is a technology that you might consider?
It's what, the engineer wanted us, the technology they wanted us to look at. They weren't sure if it was something the district would be interested in, but they thought, that we should at least have a look at this new technology. We looked at it. I do believe there's places for it, just not down there. Especially that many of them.
Okay.
The Ocean Highlands Control Panel, we are still working with the panel builder. So we're probably looking at sometime, probably late December, early January, before we get a completion date on that. As you notice, the boxes behind me are gone. So the UPSs have been installed and the server rack has been cleaned up. We did run into one issue. I don't know if the board members are aware, we posted it on our website that we had to close the office for one day. We had lost the sonic wall, which is basically what allows your internet in. We thought we'd lost internet. All our servers went down. So when we contacted Spectrum, they ran a test and our internet was good to our line. That's how the IT found that it was internal. So that's been taken care of. We were down for most of the day. I think we finally got server back around 3:00 in the afternoon.
This is Simeon. What is a sonic wall?
Sonic wall, I believe, is like your firewall, your protection.
Okay.
Or hacking. It's something required because we do take credit card payments and stuff like that.
Okay.
But it actually stopped the internet from coming in, so nothing worked, not the phones, not online, nothing worked.
So this is an excellent point where I can bring something in. This is John. On October 24th at 10:30, Leslie Ann Kanoa, I think, is going to be visiting. She's the cybersecurity state coordinator for the state of Oregon. This is the lady that made the presentation at our annual conference, SDAO. And Dan tells me that she was actually here, what, 4 or 5 years ago?
Yeah,
And made some suggestions which were adopted.
that's where we got the sonic wall. Yes, it was for cybersecurity. And she gave suggestions, we gave to the IT. That's when some of the other security stuff was put in,
So
security equipment.
she's coming back at Dan's invitation and our encouragement, but it's been 4 or 5 years and the technology changes. Who knows where things are at, but she'll take a look at it again.
Yeah, it'll take about 2 hours. She said that's about what it was last time.
So any board members are welcome to attend, I would think.
Up to 2.
Up to 2, yeah.
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 I would like to attend, however, I will be verifying signatures on ballots at that time, so I can't attend.
Okay, so I will attend, and if anybody else would like to attend, please let Dan know.
Yeah.
So. Okay, I'm sorry.
All right. So our Benton Electric, who has serviced our security system since we put the place into service. Their tech died, so they're closing down their low voltage division. And we've been passed on to low voltage Northwest. They're having a problem getting the transfer of our account over to them from Benton. I don't know if it has to do with their employee issue at Benton. So I received an email yesterday, and they'll be here next week. They're hoping to be here next week. They need to fix our dual path, which allows us to remotely, it's two paths. You can use cellular data, or you can use Wi-Fi to arm and disarm remotely, or here, or you can use the keypad. So we've had some issues. We've had to use the keypad. We're having some other issues. So they're coming to fix it. Benton worked on it almost a year ago when we started having issues, but I didn't realize, and they didn't contact us, why they hadn't gotten back to us in so long, was because they had no staff, no low voltage staff. So you already approved, I think last month's meeting, I brought the paperwork in. So I'm just waiting for Northwest voltage to get here, low voltage. Under personnel, our preferred worker has decided not to be trained in anything. He's backed out of training through workers' comp. So I changed the ad to advertise for a trainee for the district, one that we would hire on. We contacted, I spoke to them, we contacted a couple more of the workers' comp, but they have nobody that wants to come train in wastewater. So that's where we're at with that. So we're gonna have to hire our own training.
Okay.
It's been, what, 3 months?
Been a while.
So we're gonna have to change. So I had Aaron repost the advertisement to include training now. And it's also on our website. And that is my conclusion. Or I think questions are ready.
All right, old business, we've already gone over the Avalon Pump Station touch, I think, right? And also the Oceanside Pump Station. But I just wanted to keep these on the agenda so that they're not just put in the closet and forgotten. The next item is item C, NOSD, public meetings policy. I have a motion to accept the policy.
I will move that we accept the public meeting policy.
I'll second it.
And as far as discussion goes, Jerry made some suggestions which were incorporated. And Simeon, your suggestion was also incorporated in this model policy. And apparently, I saw something on the internet from SDAO, or that the state has just come out with their video, their version. So they're still a little bit slow and behind the 8 ball on getting this all done, but hopefully it will all be consistent. But it could be changed, but I think with the approval of this item and the resolution, we complete all of the possibilities that we have for insurance reduction, the various 2%. And I want to thank everybody and thank Aaron for taking care of that. So with that said, unless there's any discussion, all those in favor of approving the public meetings policy, say aye.
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 And then the other part of that is Resolution 2405, which is adopting the policy. Can I have a motion to accept resolution 2405?
I move that we accept resolution 2405 regarding the adoption of a public meeting policy.
And I'll second that. Discussion? If there is none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Right,
All right, great. That's done, Jeff. The next item was the workshop planning, and I had sent an email, as I remember, that I had sort of asked that people bring any thoughts to the meeting. And this afternoon, I just kind of threw some stuff together, which you should have a copy of. I made a call to SDAO and I said, you have any folks that are facilitators or that sort of thing? And they said they'd get back to me. I told them, I said, I'm not interested in a specific, like, train the board members. I'm more interested in a broad scope of subjects that we might be dealing with. And there may be nothing out there, but I know, Jim, you said you had done a lot of work in this area before. And I don't know, I just threw these out.
this is Jim, I got a suggestion, if that's
Yeah.
warranted. This is a great list, but it's probably way too much.
Okay, and that's fine. I just
Yeah,
was putting things.
right, and I've got some notes as far as other things that could be, discussed. I guess what I would recommend is that we do like a 3-hour shot. Everybody brings their own brainstorming ideas and then come up with 3 or 4 areas that we can actually do something with,
Okay,
and then come back for another 3-hour shot and hone in on those 3 or 4 or 5 different subjects so that we come out of it with, concrete plan for those issues that we might have
okay.
identified as important.
Simeon
But Jim,
Thoughts?
just so I
or Jim?
understand, this is Jerry. You're suggesting we have 2 workshops, one to plan the workshop and then one to conduct it?
One, to brainstorm different folks' ideas about how to, issues that the district we may be not dealing with on a monthly basis. And then prioritize 3 or 4 of those and come back and then create plans behind those ideas that we came up with.
Okay, I was trying to understand the focusing in on the first meeting, which is essentially what John asked us to do already by submitting stuff, and he's offered this list. I was just trying to be efficient with the amount of time we're asking board members to do, and whether we need 2 meetings, one to plan and the other one to have it, when the planning could probably be done as a continuation of the input process John's already started, but that's just my initial reaction.
This is Simeon. I'm not 100% clear in my mind what our desired outcome of this whole process is.
Well, every month, Dan's report, there's a sheet that has kind of what bigger picture things.
Mhm.
And we don't ever really deal with those.
And this is John, and that was created because we didn't have that much information for the next budget as far as what might be required to fund. And I think that was Kent Brown that was saying you need more information about what you want to do. So that was created, that operational summary, for partially that purpose, for future budget planning, that, oh yeah, we have the tanks out here and we're gonna have to remove the sludge eventually, and various other items, I think, were added to that to create a page and a half of information. I think, wasn't that pretty much?
Yeah, this is Dan. Yeah, that's kind of probably it in a nutshell, but that was more just one, I would think one item would be budgeting. I mean, John put some work into this. I think off of what you said, Jim, maybe our first meeting ought to go in and prioritize this list.
Right.
I would like to have seen something that we look at ordinances. As John has known, he's gone through a few that
Yeah.
are decades old. And one thing that I think is going to be a priority is we're going to have to look at ordinances when it comes to like our SDC charges, when to collect them. The auditor hit us pretty hard on that this year. And so I think there's some priorities there that we need to get some house cleaning done on that.
Yep.
Get our ordinances updated. I'm not saying the whole ordinance book. I'm saying pick out some priorities. SDC is one of them. Because our auditor hit us on, we may invoice for a SDC in March of this year, but not collect it till August of the following fiscal year.
Mhm.
And that throws off how they analyze the budget. So I think that's something that should be a top priority. Policies, we're gonna have to look at updating the COVID policy. So those are just a couple of items that I think we need to kick around and get that in what you said, go through and get an importance, start prioritizing that list.
Right.
And break the list down to something manageable per year where you're not up here for 3 hours and then you get nowhere.
Right.
So what do we want to accomplish in this fiscal year, next fiscal year?
So this is Simeon again. The outcome of this process would be like a 5-year long-range plan that lays out some things over a certain number of years. This year we'd be looking at these things. The next year we'd be looking at other things, or
Well, I think the problem, to have it be really super formal kind of is restrictive. I think. It's just me talking. Kind of to have a formal, the facilities plan will come out. The budgeting process will happen. As far as formal planning goes.
so
This is more or less, from my perspective, is identifying areas of need.
Okay.
That we don't normally talk about on a monthly basis.
Yeah,
Terry?
or John.
Terry?
Hi. A couple of things. First of all, I don't see a list in the board packet. Was that separately distributed, or? I don't, the
The
list you
list-
worked on, I don't think I saw it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I sent it out about an hour and a half on our laptops to everybody. So,
Okay, that's fine. I can look at it.
yeah, it
So
was
I
an
didn't know
email
if
I
Jeff-
sent out.
I
It's
didn't
kinda
know if Jeff and I
last
were both
minute.
sitting here in the dark about your list, so. More importantly, I really like, and have always liked, Jim's suggestion, and I completely agree that to kind of aim towards a goal of some kind of formal list or statement would be a little bit restrictive, but more importantly redundant of what we're already going to do in the facilities plan and the budget. I think what Jim was aiming for, and you can contradict, you can tell me I'm full of it here, Jim, but I think he was just looking for more conversation, more more awareness and dissemination of information in a Q&A format that focuses on the big ticket items that we have ahead of us, to provide context and background for the more formal process that would happen afterwards. But he didn't want to skip from very cursory mentions in the agenda reports to those formal documents without more of a back and forth conversation to inform our understanding of those issues before we start reducing them to writing. Jim, is that?
Yeah,
Is
that's it. Yep.
okay? So I think to address Simeon's question, the outcome we're looking for is a broader and better informed board consensus of our priorities over the next 5 years for when we actually do update our facilities plan, and also to inform our budget process. And the understanding and the consensus would be the product. And if there's a way to kind of reduce that to some writing or understanding, I think that would be great for future board members. So it's just not in our brains, but I really do see the value in just our having a workshop conversation where we can kind of interrupt each other and go back and forth and reduce chaos in our brains, or unorganized thoughts about all of these things at once, into a more organized way of thinking about them, and some common understanding that we're all going to draw upon, having all been at this workshop, when we go forward to the more formal stuff. So that was long-winded, but that was my hope for what we were going to do with this kind of a workshop. And so I just thought I would lay it out there in response to Simeon's inquiry.
Yeah, this is Simeon. I appreciate this conversation. I think in my mind, I was trying to sort out the difference between this process and the facility plan process, because in my mind, I think the facility plan was sort of the stand-in for here's the big picture and
Well, yeah,
here are the things that we know are coming that we have to deal with at some point, and when are we going to have to deal with those? So
the facilities plan, this is Jim, is more of a, and from an engineering point of view, whereas let's say, for instance, we represent the public.
Yeah.
And we don't necessarily ever have any guests. Well, is that an issue or not? I don't know.
In that regard,
That doesn't really come, facilities plan doesn't really cover that.
yeah, in that regard, of course, this workshop would be a public meeting.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
And this is John. I mean, it seems like every year when we have an incremental increase in rates, we beat ourselves up, whether it's a larger number to cover a number of years or a smaller number to cover a year, and what's the best way to do it. And we come up with something, but it's not based on any kind of real strategic plan at all, in a sense. That
As Dan, I'm not following that statement.
just what the overall strategy is, knowing that there will be increases. It's just at one point.
So this is Dan. If I can explain my point of view, which I think goes off with, you made a statement, Jim, about the facility plan is more of engineering. It really is not an engineering plan. The facility plan is what the district chooses as a priority. The engineers plug numbers, estimated numbers in there so we can budget for that. And then we pick the priority on each one of those that we want to implement. Now, it doesn't always work out the way you plan because other things can happen, but that's a good planning process. So I think like under John's C, district viability and growth, facility plan, most everything under that could go in the facility plan. Okay, Radar Road, that'll be in the future. Oceanside hotels, Cougar Ridge, those can go more up front. But we need to plan, I think where John was going, if I understand what you're saying, John, is what's more what do we have to tell the ratepayers that this is what we're gonna be spending money on over the next fiscal year or the next 2 fiscal years? So is that kind of what you were saying, Jim? I mean, the facility plan is something the district puts together with their wants and their priorities. Engineers, you give that to them and they plug the numbers into it and what the engineering would take to do it. So that helps us with our budgeting.
Right.
So,
And in terms of, this is Simeon again, in terms of my own thinking about what we might talk about, Jim, you said you had some other items that you might want to share with John, and I would be curious to see those as well, just to sort of spark my own thinking about what are the categories
Well,
of
and I
things that we
think,
might talk about here.
This is Johnny and Jim. You had kind of mentioned succession planning
Right.
at one point for the superintendent, which doesn't mean this gentleman is going anywhere.
Correct.
But nevertheless, it just to think about where are we going to be in, say, 5 to 7 years when Dan might say, I've had enough fun, I'm just going to go out and build racing motors exclusively. But yeah, and actually I saw you kind of grimace when we talked about the operator position, that we're not really having any luck
Right.
with that.
Right.
So, I mean, it certainly could be a topic for discussion
Correct.
in this. And then, as tough as it is to get board member candidates, it's not easy. So,
So this is a kind of discussion, we can go on and on this.
certainly,
So maybe if whoever would want to, other than, it couldn't be more than, we can't have a full board meeting, but I'd be willing to work with John, the chair, and whoever else might be interested in honing this down and come up with a paragraph or so explaining what the outcome should be or what the process and how much time it would take. And we can have this same discussion with a little more information next month.
okay, is everybody agreeable on that, or?
I'm fine. with
Jerry? Your
Yes,
thoughts?
that'd be right. Great. I'd appreciate it. No, I
Okay, good,
think this is evolving in a really positive direction.
good.
Okay, good. So we're started. Report to the Board of Directors, the acuity audit report.
excuse me, John, this is Dan. Did we just decide when we're gonna start the first workshop, or is that?
No,
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 okay, okay,
Okay.
let me offer up what I'm thinking the board is talking about. So this is John, and I think the idea was that Jim and I would get together, look at what I provided. Jim has some additional ideas and hone it down to what we think it should be and bring it back to the board next month. And then after that, we'll see whether we are in a position to set an actual workshop date.
right,
Okay,
sounds good.
Is that,
all right, that's clear now.
okay? Many notes, huh? Okay, so you still need?
No, I'm good. I'm good.
All right. So we have the audit report. And this year they added, if you go to page 8 on the report, they have added a discrepancy, and it's a material weakness, which Dan can explain probably better than I can. The other two items, funding number 2402 and 03 are repeat findings from last year, but they're not recommending any changes, so those will probably answer pretty much like we did last year and close them out. The first one, I don't know if we need any more information. The 24001. But nevertheless, that's something that Dan believes would be corrected when we do redo some of the policy on SDCs. Will help that out.
Yeah, I believe so. For the, when he met with Aaron and I, that was his main concern, was a new journal entry for collecting what appeared to be collecting SDC funds before we invoiced for them. And that's not how it happens, but that's how he's interpreting it. I don't know what the modified cash basis is. The UB and finance used to be separated 10, 15 years ago, but it became too big of a problem. We were getting written up on too many mistakes. So Springbrook combined them. So everything transfers over, but now it's standard and Springbrook cannot separate them unless they trick our system to do what the accountant wants. What you do is you risk human error and having to enter things twice. So trying to shorten this up, but I think if we simply, because it's the SDC, the time we collect it from the time we invoice it out, too much time goes by and most all of it shows up at the end of the fiscal year. So that's his biggest concern. So if we change our policy where we collect SDCs at the time we issue our sewer availability letters, then that should eliminate that issue. It has to do with invoicing in one fiscal year and collecting them another fiscal year. That's what happened.
So this is Simeon, just to be clear, right now, when do we collect SDCs?
We collect SDCs when they connect.
Right now,
When they go to connect. Well, after they get a building permit, let's say. Problem is sometimes if they apply in, April or May, they may not get their building permit until June. If they bring us a building permit, they issue out the SDC charge. They may not pay it till July or August, which is a new fiscal year.
and yet we've invoiced back when they applied.
Yeah. So as we invoiced for one that I brought to the board here a month or two ago, that wasn't paying. Well, we're in a new fiscal year. He was invoiced last fiscal year. He just paid yesterday. So we're already over, almost halfway into this fiscal year before he pays. So what that's going to do on the audit is doesn't show when he does the audit, it won't show that we collected anything. But then the next fiscal year, when he does the audit, you'll see we collected money that we didn't invoice for. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's where we're having a problem and why this is written up in the audit report.
And go over again for me. Again, this is Simeon, what the proposed solution is. How do we stop that from happening?
So in order to collect at the time of invoice, you collect payment at the time of invoice.
So that would be before the developer. I'm trying to think of this from the developer's point of view. From their point of view, they don't want to pay the SDC charge until they have a building permit.
Correct. Well, they don't want to pay until they literally are hooked up and living in it.
Right.
So other places already, when you come in for a sewer availability letter to go to the county to get your permit, Pacific City, I know they charge them right there. They have to pay it. And then they get the letter. And if they don't get their building permit, then the district reimburses those funds back if they can't develop.
Okay, this is Simeon again. John, do you remember a conversation at SDIO conference about some ways to encourage, I think it was the construction of low-income housing in a way that might make builders more willing to risk. And there was some SDA delaying of SDA or hookup charges that was part of that
There
conversation.
was that, and there's also been some efforts across the state, I think, to reduce for low income, low income housing and such, reduce the amount of the SDC, which we haven't done and we're not doing, but it has been discussed by the housing council of the, as a subunit of the Board of Commissioners.
Yeah,
So they have talked about that, but one of our problems, or in my view, at least in the Oceanside community, people are not, I don't see much low-income housing going in because of the costs.
yeah. So
associated.
Jerry and I are sitting on a group that's looking at middle housing mandates from the state that potentially will have more triplexes and quadruplexes happening everywhere, including in Oceanside. And this subject of hookup charges hasn't been part of that conversation yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if it
Oh,
is
it's out there.
at some
It's a
point.
900-pound gorilla.
And it strikes me that the policy that we're proposing is counter to the other discussion that I heard from the developer's point of view, how it would incentivize their
Well,
willingness to undertake these to have those charges delayed. Which means that we should invoice, if we want to invoice and collect at the same time. Maybe we would invoice not when they file it, but when they hook up, I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out how all these pieces fit together.
This is Dan. So talking about budgeting, I'm talking about, audits, right?
Yeah. No, I
And-
understand
And
that.
I'm talking about how our budget is set up and how the auditor doesn't like how we're doing it now.
Yeah.
So I've heard other plans of, setting up payments and receiving payments to lessen, that they don't have that much cash up front
Mhm.
to put out. Problem with the way our budget is done, we fall back into that. If you take a payment, now you're taking payments into the next fiscal year.
Yeah.
You invoiced in this fiscal year. So you have to fix one,
Yeah.
either change how you budget and get off of what he calls, a cash basis and go to some other type of budgeting, but then you're outside of your public budgeting laws.
Yeah.
So, I'm not saying about discounts or anything like that. All I'm saying is how we fix this audit problem.
Yeah.
yeah, which is what, we have 30 days, I think, to respond with a letter. And I don't know that the state is going to do anything one way or the other, whether it just gets filed and that's what happens. But nevertheless, we need to answer this
Yeah.
one particular item.
So Dan, what's your recommendation here?
Well, my
This is
recommendation,
Jim.
this is Dan, my recommendation, if you read down two more, on that page,
I don't know, the pages aren't numbered.
I know,
Well,
you
it's-
got to go to page 8,
it's this
which
one,
isn't,
Jim, it looks like this.
yeah.
It's this.
If
And
you
the
go
number,
down through
it's the
to page 8,
2024-001.
So if you look down, cause of condition under criteria, then you got condition and cause of condition. He's saying lack of understanding of accounting basis and software functionality. And I talked to Aaron at length about this, actually Aaron and JC. We're gonna have to bring in a consultant to look over our audit and what our auditor is saying. Because the one that has, in my opinion, the lack of understanding of accounting basis and software functionality is our accountant. Because our software accounting is telling us that we can't do what the accountant is saying. They don't even know what the accountant is saying.
Okay. This is Jim. You're using the term accountant. What's the difference between an accountant and an auditor here?
Okay,
An
well,
accountant can do an
okay,
audit.
so, yeah, he's an accountant, but
Yeah.
he's our auditor.
I know,
So
Yeah,
it's our
same.
auditor saying it, okay? So we're having a clash now with what our auditor, after 4 years of operating the same software system, the software he wants us to go to, or the way he wants us to operate our software can't be done unless you get your software company to trick the system.
This is the first year he's brought up the problem, and he has been our auditor for the last 3 to 4 years.
Yeah.
So,
well,
So what we're being written up on here, what my suggestion to the board is, we're gonna have to hire a consultant to review the auditor's report. Because this auditor's report needs to be challenged. We have been running the same software system that he is saying that we don't have an understanding of.
so
Just so you know, it was a bit of a heated conversation with the auditor this year.
on this one issue.
Yes, and when we asked him to explain it, he just kept saying the same thing over and over and over again.
Okay,
And he's not, for this year, even though we've done this for years, he's having a problem with it this year. So to correct one of his issues under the criteria, we can do that through an ordinance or an ordinance change on when we collect the fee. I know that goes against what you were saying about, helping on housing
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
this is Jim. I don't know if it's this current board, but we had this discussion about giving assistance to developers for low-income housing. We decided not to go there because the cost of property here is so expensive. It just doesn't make sense. There might be 3 or 4 lots in a Netarts, but that's another whole bailiwick. But what I'm suggesting is that we write a letter saying it doesn't fit within our software capability. And who do you recommend as another, accountant to come up with some kind of a plan here
so
to make sure that we're cooperating with his concern? But if it's software issue, does he realize that?
so
We tried to explain it to him, Aaron and I both did.
But it didn't go through.
No, and what you're reading on this paper shows that he stuck to his guns and didn't listen, that what he's requesting is not capable of doing. We've even called Netarts Water, who runs the same software, and theirs is set up the same way. It's a standard. It's a default.
So my suggestion is, since we need to respond to this within 30 days with a check for $350 to the state, which is the fee that they require, is that we leave this item open, put something in here that we're continuing to review this and will advise in whatever period of time. And then on items 2 and 3, close them again, and then get the letter off. And this would remain open to be with have another follow-up letter to the state with what we decided we were gonna do.
John,
Yes,
This is Jerry. This is Jerry, and that is exactly what I was thinking. Just basically shine them on a bit and say, we're looking into it, we're conducting research, and, are exploring the feasibility and practicality of options to address this concern, and just shine it off and see if it even shows up next year.
right. Okay, is that, if everybody's agreeable to that, I'll work with Dan and draft up the letter to go to the state that basically leaves this item open, that we're working on it.
This is Simeon. I'm fine with that. The one question I had about this was going back to the suggestion that Dan made about the policy change. Is that an action that we want to pursue at this time, or are we tabling that as part of your suggestion, John?
Well, I think any changes to the way we collect SDCs and that policy is something that we can draft up and then discuss and review and make whatever changes we may want to it. I mean, I don't know that we need to make a policy decision this evening on what we're going to do. We can wait on that based upon what we think it ought to be and just think about it a little more. I mean, I don't want to keep us here another hour because it's already turning 7:00. So if everybody's agreeable with that, it will be something to be worked, but not yet.
I'm agreeable with that.
Is that,
Yeah.
okay, what do you need for your notes?
You
I-
are drafting a letter that we will send with,
To the state, if everybody's basically agreeable without a motion on that. I think Jerry said it eloquently, and I agree with what he said.
I like Jerry.
Okay. Correspondence, did everybody? Well, we said board action, didn't we, on this? So, I'll tell you what, to make it like a board action, I'll make a motion that I will, with Dan, draft up a letter to the state, closing actions 2 and 3, leaving action number 1 open, and we will get that out in the next 30 days. So,
I'll second that.
second, any further discussion? If there's none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right.
I,
Okay. Correspondence, you should all have board and staff contact information, I think. If there's no other discussion, we'll consider the meeting closed and adjourned.
Good.
We have 1 or 2
Thanks,
things to
guys.
sign.
Thanks, Jerry.
Thank you, Jerry. Any more bears come by the place?
the next morning, another one came down, according to our neighbor. Apparently this is the season for them, but
Really?
we're just keeping our food inside.
Where's he at? Yeah.
He's, the
Oh,
lake.
cool.
Okay, good night, folks.
Good night.
Good night, Jerry.
Yeah.
It's just, Ocean Islands is the only one that you could issue.
Right.
I had that
Yeah, I think we're.
picking out of my paperwork.
All right, so.
There was a signature.
Take it, 7:15, and you guys.
Yeah, we'll just drive by and take it.
Thank